All right, we are back with a little end of day recap and commentary. First thing to look at here is definitely ES coming into the session. The main watch was how we traded versus that 4370 level. That was a level of interest based on the near term structure. Level we've been pretty much watching all week. That was the low from last Thursday. Pretty much oscillated throughout there. Tested it Tuesday session during the overnight. Ultimately resolved lower, and so it stayed on the watch coming into today. Essentially, what we were looking to see was just the reaction versus that level, treating it as kind of a near-term pivot. And so we come into the open. Price pretty much opens directly at that 4370, blips higher, instantly rejected, and you have a big sell bar. That marked the high for the session. And so what you can do with that is you can get short early based on whatever strategies you may have in your playbook to ride this trend into prior day high, which was kind of the next reference point that we had. You also have VWAP right there. This is generally a long that I'm going to be looking for. I passed on it today. I did not really see a great signal bar here. Location is good. I do like prior day high with VWAP confluence there, but not a great signal bar. So that's a tough trade for me to take. Even if we go ahead and look at the 1 minute, not a lot of clarity here as to whether or not this is actually going to follow through and give us a real test of that prior day high and VWAP. It never did. That's kind of what I like to see in this scenario. It was pretty close. We're only talking about 1.5 points of risk. But even at this location, a point higher than where I'd really like to see it, there's not a great signal bar there. So that would have been one of the easier money trades. Unfortunately, that signal bar did not develop. And so passed on that one. You get another short opportunity right through here past 10 a.m. as 4370 is retested. And from there, we just go into straight trend day. So there were some attempts. You got a intraday change in character right through here, at least attempted. No follow through on that buying. And we just make fresh lows right after that. That was kind of some interesting action that we saw. Pretty much puked all throughout the day following that. Our next level of interest below the 4370 per the pre-market prep plan was the 4350. That initial bounce point was staged right there. Break below, retest, now acts as resistance. So support becomes resistance and vice versa, right? So once you see that level of interest break, bounces into it, you want to look for some type of weakness, some type of signal that it is going to hold as resistance, and we just roll over. Now, what I was looking for in today's session is for 43.35 to be held. As you can see, there's just no interest at that 43.35. It was definitely a significant level. We can tell based on the intraday action, but no bid there at all. And so that kind of changes what we're working with next week. Ideally, we wanted that 43.35 to hold and start to create a bit of a change in character, a bit of potentially a new trend higher. But when we look at it like this, what do we have here? Essentially just a sideways range. Just a sideways range going back from last Friday. So the past week, pretty much sideways with a lot of activity in between, right? So a very wide range, but a range nonetheless. Current prices are where we were trading Monday, Tuesday, right? And so that's how I'll be treating this into early next week. Near-term range, we do have the 200 MA still right below us. 4,300 is going to be a big psychological level. I'm also going to be looking, this was kind of interesting this afternoon. We do have this week's volume point of control right through here at 43.15. So this will likely be a level of interest for next week. We did manage to stage a bounce there. this afternoon. I did not originally have this as a level of interest today. But when we look at it, we can see, okay, yeah, this is likely some accumulation here. Initially bounced versus that point. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that 43.15 into next week. Definitely a level that you want to be watching, simply because, again, volume point of control, that's where all of the volume through price has transacted for this week. And so the simple analysis is that if we're above it, the assumption is it was accumulation. If we're below, the assumption is it was distribution. And so with that, let's look at the daily. Still pretty much sitting right here on the 200 MA, right through here, 200 MA. Wednesday gave us that nice hammer, bit of follow through on Thursday, attempted follow through today, did not materialize. Still trading below the fast MA. Could not hold above the fast MA this morning. Back down into this week's volume point of control. That's that red line that you can see there. We do have a series, looking at each individual bar here, we do have a series of higher lows. And so that'll be something to monitor next week as well. But again, just treating this setup as kind of a near-term range. The broader context, I'll do a full write-up on this in the weekly kickoff, which will be released on Sunday. But essentially, remember, base breakout, right? Summer rally, we're retesting that breakout point now. If we look at the weekly, okay, coming into today, we had a better looking weekly candle that was negated with most of today's action. Let's check the monthly. I don't look at this all that often. So a big sell bar, but just coming back down into pretty much the monthly volume point of control right through here, right? We are coming into a period of pretty heavy bullish seasonality. Generally, a low is marked in early October before a rally. And so just keeping an open mind here, it would be interesting to see kind of a break of this recent low, get some late chasers trapped there, and then that marks the low for Q4. Just kind of thinking out loud on that one as some potential scenarios that could happen. Definitely will be watching the higher time frame charts for some type of low to develop for Q4, essentially. Just aligning with the seasonal setup. I mean, when we zoom out on this, on the weekly here, from a technical perspective, right? Breakout, retest. I mean, this is a logical bounce point. It may take another week. May take another week or two, but we're kind of getting into that location where you may expect some bouncing. So I'd be watching this kind of recent action closely, especially on the higher time frame chart, see how it develops. Be paying a very close attention to any undercuts of Wednesday's low. This week's Wednesday's low. That would be interesting, kind of ramp up the fear before bouncing. They tend to do that, tend to see that type of action. Almost like what we saw in late August, right? I thought they were going to undercut this low, but that did not happen. So we'll see how it develops. Again, not a prediction or anything like that. Just kind of like to keep an open mind about some of these scenarios. As far as individual names, I do have MU staying on the watch. This is a relative strength name. Pretty much unaffected by the index today. Let's check SMH. Yeah, so RS versus its peers. MU showing RS versus the semiconductor ETF. SMH still kind of holding this area of support. So that's on watch on Monday. We have Netflix Swing Watch. Won't be initiating any swings before the close today. But this is something I would be interested in grabbing early October, as well as AMD. AMD's, I need it to to come back here to pull in a bit before getting long that one. Otherwise, the risk is just 7.5%, right? So that's also on Swing Watch, and we have Shop as well. So we'll be checking these early October, sometime next week. As far as Monday's list, we do have Nike. We talked about this morning. I'm glad we didn't include it on the list. Essentially a no man's land here. Come Monday, we do treat it as a second day play. So we'll just be watching the action versus 96 essentially. That's pretty much it. Let's take a look at SPY. Yeah, so a gap up. The gap gets faded. Anytime we're gapping up in this type of environment where big picture is downtrend, you want to be assessing pretty early in the session how the gap is treated. If it's not essentially accepted immediately, like if it's not a gap and go, especially when we're talking about a downtrend and we're gapping higher, if it's not a gap and go, look for that gap fill trade. Took a while today, but it did materialize. That is exactly what we saw today in ES, in SPY. So keep that in mind. As far as Monday, early, we'll be looking at 43.15, 43.35. Just using today's structural levels. So pretty straightforward stuff. Range trading from this point forward until we breach 42.80 or potentially, really we'll just call it 4,400. Pretty wide range. Any questions on that? Making sense? All right. All good. All good. Sweet. Yeah, so pretty nice action today. Again, I wish that we saw a better type of signal bar here on ES, but hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. The challenge is, you get to that good location, you have no signal bar. It's like, well, do I try it anyway? And then it blips lower and you're kicking yourself because you didn't wait for a good signal bar, but then you see it resolve higher like it did today and you're like, well, I should have just tried it. I mean, that's part of the mental aspect of trading. So personally, I'd rather just pass on this. Yeah, it was nice as far as location, but I need something a little better on a Friday. I'm looking for an A+ trade, not a B quality trade. So no problem passing on something like that. Missed both of the shorts personally at 43.70. Those were great opportunities. I had some scalps just throughout the late morning and then into power hour here. Clean short versus our 43.35 and then two longs. So that's pretty much it. All right, guys. Well, I hope everyone had a great week. Looking forward to Monday and keep your eyes peeled for that weekly kickoff on Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. SPY green now, Alan. Let's see. Yeah, into VWAP. Let's check the daily. Yeah, looks good. Looks good. I mean, we didn't break prior day low, right? So there was nothing totally unusual about today's action. So look at this. I mean, look at this 15-minute range, new range. All right, guys. Have a good afternoon. I'll see you on Monday. Take